All right, just again, a very good win a week ago at Buffalo. It's hard to believe it was a week ago, but really happy with how our defense stepped up in the second half. I thought our special teams were the real difference in the game. Obviously, the two block punts that led to touchdowns were big plays. And then our big-time players made big-time plays at the end of the game when it counted. And in that last drive, the way Tyler spread it around, hitting Adrian Hodges, Chris Wright, the two screens to Willie Jeter and Chris Bullock, and then the game winner to Freddie. It was a very rewarding win. But we had to turn our focus pretty quickly and get ready for a very, I think, very dangerous Miami team. Offensively, they are really clicking. They kind of, once they made the decision to go with Dysert, and now they've made a decision that they're going to throw the ball a lot and really spread it out. And they threw the ball for over 400 yards last week against probably the best defense in the conference, and had them beat with 6 seconds left in the game. So they're a very good offensive team, and it starts with the quarterback. They have some really good receivers. They can run. They make plays in space. They protect them well. And then on defense, they're a challenge. They do a lot of different things, a lot of different blitz packages, and it's a tough. We're really glad we have the extra couple of days because we needed to get ready. So it's a very big game for us, and we've had a great week of practice, and we're excited to go.
You feel like sometimes you're a salesman trying to convince your team that you're playing a 1-9 club, but these guys are really good and they're a legitimate opponent.
You know what? When it comes to November football, it's really hard to even look at the records. Through the course of the year, some teams get better and some teams get worse, and so there's teams that have good records but they're struggling now, and there's teams that maybe don't have a great record, but in this conference especially, you can't overlook who a team played. I mean, you have the 8 MAC games, but what you do with those other 4 games has a major impact on what your record is. And if you look at Miami, okay, they opened the season with Kentucky, who's an SEC team that's going to a bowl. Then they play an undefeated Boise. They play a Northwestern team that just beat Iowa, and they played an undefeated Cincinnati team. And so, you have a new head coach that inherits a very young football team, and then you play 4 out-of-conference games like that. It was very hard for them to build confidence. Now they get into the MAC. They play some games that maybe they're not as overmatched, and now they have some confidence, and they're playing their best football of the year. So, that's the thing. In this league, when you look at a team's record, it's not always indicative of how good of a team they are, because in this conference, there's some teams that play very challenging non-conference schedules, and there's some teams that don't. And obviously, at the end of the year, that affects their record. But there's some good teams in our league that don't have great records because of who they played.
Coach, this is your first VG Miami game, but there's been some wild games in this series. Mm-hmm. What are you kind of expecting? You kind of touched on there the record. You can't really look at the record.
I mean, I expect that we're going to play a very well-prepared team that is probably as confident as they've been all year. I think there's certain, as coaches, you never like to say there's moral victories. I'm sure they're extremely proud of their football team. They go to Temple and play the leader in the East, and to be able to go up with 2 minutes left in the game tells you a lot about how hard those guys are still playing. And that's a credit to Coach Haywood and his staff. And I've said this before, the Coach of the Year awards, those guys, the guys that get those awards, win 10 games and go to bowl games and win championships. And the truth of it is, when you're winning, the job of coaching is a little bit easier. Where the real coaching and the challenging coaching goes on is if you have a team that struggles, and getting them to continue to listen to your message and continue to have them get better and continue to play hard, that's where the challenge in this profession is. And I think you'd have to give those guys down in Miami certainly an A for the job they've done this year to keep those guys getting better, with the schedule they've had and the start they got off to. So they're a good, do they have a great record? Obviously no. Are they a good football team? I mean, you watch the film and what they did to Temple, and they're a very dangerous team.
You talked a little bit about kind of the confidence that Miami has now. What about your team and coming off a win like that? What's kind of the feel coming off that win?
Well, it was a great locker room. And we made a lot of mistakes in the Buffalo game. I mean, we really, probably our worst half of defense in the first half, and then our best half of defense in the second half. Our special teams overall were good, but we tried to catch a punt inside the 5-yard line and fumble it. Offensively, it was just one of those games. It never seemed to be in sync, and a lot of that's a credit to Buffalo. Buffalo was really good in the secondary at linebackers, and those guys did a great job of tackling our receivers. A lot of our offenses, we throw the ball short, and then our guys are going to make somebody miss and make a big play out of it. And Buffalo did a great job of tackling us. So it was a great win. I think it's a credit to our players how resilient they are. And, 3 of our wins this year, we've been behind by double digits. Whether it's 14-0 at Troy, down 12 points with 5 minutes left to Kent, down 13 points with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter to Buffalo. So I'm certainly proud of our resiliency. I would like one of those games that we play well early and get a lead and stay in front, and we haven't found that formula yet, and it'll be hard to do this week.
This is the game's Thursday, so it's Saturday. What is it?
You love these questions, right? And it was a little bit of a cheap shot in the paper when you said I had a rumbling answer. If you'd really listened closely to it made total logical sense if you really listened to it close. That was your cheap shot?
Well, I don't want a cheap shot.
That was a little bit of a low blow. You said it was a rambling statement.
Well, I apologize then.
So you just need to pay close attention here. So, game day is always Saturday. So we would have today, which would be a typical Thursday. So we will have what would be a Thursday practice that we're in uppers, and we kind of go through what we call our dress rehearsal. That we go through as many game situations as we can. It's not a real physical practice, but we kind of have our checklist of the things we need to hit, and that's what we'll do today. Good with that?
What difference does it make that it's Veterans Day though, and there's no school tomorrow? See, now does that throw off your routine?
It makes it a little bit easier actually that our players they won't miss any class tomorrow.
But you're not supposed to work tomorrow. University employees have the day off.
I'll put in overtime and see how that request goes.
Good for you.
Talk about Miami doing different things defensively.
They have a lot of different defensive packages. They have all these different personnel groups, and they seem to emphasize a couple every week over the other. And in their blitz package, they'll overload the defense and put 2 defensive ends to a side. And they won't do it all in our game, but because they've shown it, you don't know what to get ready for, so it gives you a lot to prepare for. It's a lot of defense to get ready for in 1 week. And they run well. They're a little bit like us. They're a little undersized in their defensive ends like we are. And because of that, there's a lot of different movements and line twists and blitzes they do to keep those guys on the move. And it becomes tough because if you turn those things loose, you can give up sacks and have negative yardage plays and get off schedule, and that's not something that we can afford to have happen on offense.
What have people told you about this rivalry with Miami?
Oh, just whenever you take over a new program and you interact with alums, they'll say things to you. And with a large contingency here, it's, hey, Coach, I don't care what you do, just beat the school to the north. And there's certainly another group of alums here that it's the school to the south. I think it's neat that we have 2 really big rivalry games, and this is one of them. And my sense is with the players that played here in the 50s, in the Dwight Perry era, in the Don Nehlen era, this was the game. And then as it got into the 70s and the 80s, then the rivalry with Toledo became another big game. So